Welcome back to another episode of the Warpbound podcast. Today I am joined by my wonderful co-host,
Leo.
and today we are going to be covering the origins of the Blood Angels. Are you ready to get into this, honey?
Yes.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay.
Blood, 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 blood. I forgot the intro.
Don't worry, honey. Well, alright. Let's get into it. We usually start with hobby small talk before we dive into the whole subject. So, have you been up to anything?
I made this thing.
The Spider-Man crochet thingy? Remember, just because we have a really bad camera set up for the both of us now doesn't mean that we can ignore our audio-only listeners, okay?
Oh, can they hear me?
Yeah. Yes, they can hear you, honey. It's a podcast.
No, I was just so far away. That's why.
Mm.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But describe the stuff you've been doing.
The Spider-Man is the hanging crochet, the card thingy that you can hang over on top.
Oh, what do they call those? You hang them like on your the mirror.
Yeah.
The rear view mirror. You know, those little doodads that just kind of hang there. They're usually cute. I can't remember what you call them, but yeah, I know what you're talking about.
This is Spider-Man hanging upside down, with the webs being the connection.
That's fun.
It's my first time making it. What do you think? What do you think?
I think it's really cute. I think that'll sew well.
Hopefully.
Anything else you've been
doing? Making a second Spider-Man.
Yeah, you just making another one.
Yeah.
Nice.
Mhm.
You've been reading anything lately?
Been trying to, but whatever.
Yeah. You're leaning so out of frame right now, like how your face is cut off.
It looks so far away from the mic, but then.
Here, look. I'll push it a little bit closer to you because I'm better at projecting my voice.
Thank you.
So I haven't been doing anything too crazy. I've been reading this Dark Souls comic book series that has been really fun, made by Titan Comics or published by Titan Comics at least. Really, really cool. And have I been doing anything else? No, not really. You know, I was playing some Total War earlier. I was downloading some Warhammer games to make some gaming videos for the channel and stuff like that. But mostly I've been writing scripts and I recorded a video last night and I want to record one or two more later today. So I've mostly just been working on content stuff. I want the weekends to be my big content push, where I just record early in the morning, and just knock it out of the park. But anyway. And then maybe Sunday and the rest of the week can be my editing days. But yeah. I think that's all for hobby small talk.
Yeah. Haven't built any Warhammer.
Yeah. Oh. You know what? Maybe we should just make that into a video. You know what I mean? We should make up a fun video with the models that we have, and
yeah.
People do challenge videos, where it's I have to build a whole army in 24 hours with no sleep, you know what I mean, before this thing. Just because it's YouTube clickbaity, you know what I mean, make people want to watch the video kind of thing.
Yeah.
But, whatever. You ready to get into this? Alright, so, the Blood Angels. What do you know about them?
We watched we watched an animation about them.
We were watching the GW animation on them, yeah.
And I remember you telling me some backstory between them, where they were saved, their combat bloods, and you can use them later on. Something like that. I don't know.
You talking about Gene Seed?
I don't know.
The thing that they use to make more Space Marines?
Yeah.
They take them out of the dead body. So all Space Marines do that?
Oh, okay.
There's not a Blood Angel specific thing, but yeah, you do remember. You asked me what are they doing because they acted like it was so important, Yeah, Gene Seed is wildly important to Space Marines.
I mean, you mentioned something about blood. I don't remember. All I know is that blood.
Well, it's Blood Angels, so they say blood a lot. There's a lot of blood everywhere.
You told me something about. Did they drink? No, you know what? Just keep going.
Yeah,
I don't even know.
They can't. Yes, there is a vampiric blood thing going on where they can drink blood and special things happen.
Don't they go more mad?
There's something called the Black Rage that they can fall into, but that's a whole thing.
Okay.
There's a lot to them. So, right now, you just know that they're red Space Marines.
Yes.
That do something with blood, and kind of look like vampires, a vampire thingy.
Do they?
Actually? I think so.
You think?
Yeah. What do you think? I'm asking you.
No.
Yeah, so that's all?
Yeah.
You just think that they're just Space Marines that are kind of cool?
Space Marines with blah blah blood, and they red.
Yeah, which is why you like them, because they're
Yeah.
red. Alright, fair enough. Okay, so today we're going to be going over the origins of them and how we get to where they are right now in 40k. We're not going to talk too much about what they're currently up to in 40k, some of the more important things that have been happening with them in 40k. We're more so going to talk about them like pre-Sanguinius, their Primarch, during Sanguinius and during the Horus Heresy, and then basically like their last portions in the Horus Heresy before like the second founding, which is like a thing that happened post Horus Heresy with the Space Marines. And then right around there, we're gonna basically stop. I'm gonna do my best to do this kind of fast, to try and keep this, around an hour at most. Yeah, we're gonna have some fun with that.
Okay.
You ready?
Yeah.
All right. So, let me pull up my notes.
I've got professional. Professional.
Okay. So, where should we start? The Emperor did the first Space Marine founding, right? Where he made the original 20 legions. Legions are much larger than 40k chapters, but you don't necessarily need to worry about that. Just know that it's a shit ton of Space Marines that all fight a certain way, paint themselves under a certain color, and receive the genetic code of a certain Primarch, which gives them skills or personality traits, because like the Primarch's genetic code, once it splices with a Space Marine, it does change them, and it changes the way they look, it changes the way they sound a little bit, the things that they're interested in, the things that they're better at, like genetically, because Primarchs are they're not humans, they're like bioengineered machine things. Like they're not like metal inside, but you know what I mean, right? They were made in a science tube, to be really good at something, and had like, this is a theory, but it's basically all but confirmed. Like it's like the Emperor went into the warp and made a deal with the Dark Gods and like tricked them, and then like stole away the soul of like minor warp gods and then shoved them into his experiments, so that they get like the reason why the Primarchs have like wacky personalities and like special abilities and stuff that the Emperor didn't necessarily design, because some of them are like not great for the Emperor because it makes them harder to control. It's because they have their own warp spirit, and when they die, like when a Primarch dies, the marker of a real Primarch death and not a fake one or anything like that is that like an explosion of light happens as if a god is being released. You know what I mean? So, like, GW has never said they have minor gods inside of them, but it's basically like they have minor gods inside. Like, they're 100%, they have the souls of a god.
Basically, yeah. It's not confirmed, but...
And then, like, it's basically confirmed because, like, you can sometimes encounter them in the warp. You know what I mean? Like, floating around. It's like, yeah, they're 100%, like demigod, minor warp gods of some kind, which give them unique abilities, unique traits, and then that is imparted onto the Space Marines, right? So the Emperor made 20 original legions. 2 of them got erased, destroyed permanently from all records. No one knows about them. No one remembers anything about them. Nothing.
20?
So we're down to 18 legions. So we have 18 original legions that still exist in some form today, either traitor or loyalist. And the Blood Angels, or what they would be known as at the time after being used for a while, the Eaters of the Dead, were the 9th legion ever made, and they used the genetic material of Sanguinius, who hadn't been found yet. The Emperor was making the Space Marines so that he could go on a reclamation crusade, conquer the galaxy, and while he's conquering planets in the name of the Imperium, find his sons, which had been taken in a like chaos trickery scheme and flung out across the galaxy to try and slow the Emperor down.
The story you tell of one of them.
Yeah, it's that Sanguinius. Sanguinius like angelically floated down on the planet. We'll get onto that later, okay? But basically, I'll explain this in brief detail. The Emperor made the 20 children, then, killed 2 of them, and now we're down to 18. We don't know the story behind why or what happened. That's a total secret, but whatever. We have 18 kids. Him and a woman named Erda. She was essentially the mother of the Primarchs, but they're not like father and mother in the traditional sense, because these babies were made in a fucking tube. You know what I mean? Like floating around in like space juice or whatever. So, she was a scientist who helped him develop the Primarchs. And she, in a fit of like motherly protection, realized what he was going to use the Primarchs for, and realized she couldn't stomach it. And she was also kind of being tricked by the Dark Gods, and like The Dark Gods didn't want the Emperor's plan to go through. So they manipulated Erda into taking the Primarchs and launching them into space, trying to try and scatter them to slow down the Emperor. And she was like, maybe he won't find all of them. Maybe it'll take him years. Maybe they'll be able to rise up against him or something in the future. Whatever. The Emperor learns of this, and I think he kills her, or doesn't. I can't remember. I can't remember what happens to Erda, if I'm being fully honest. But now he has to go on this, road trip to find all his kids that have been scattered across the stars.
His 18 kids like, okay,
yeah,
let's see it over there.
No, every time he's on a planet, he's like, "You gotta be somewhere around here."
He's like, "Let me sniff you guys out."
But yeah, so that's pretty interesting, right? I'm not gonna tell you about the rest of the Primarchs. We're only really worried about the Blood Angels right now. So anyway, the Primarch story aside, Sanguinius is gone. But he needs to make the Space Marines to be able to go reclaim the stars. So he makes the Space Marines. They're all Primarchless, for the most part. And using Sanguinius' genetic material, he makes the Eaters of the Dead, as they'd be known. Let's see here. Simply known as the Ninth Legion, later to earn the title Eaters of the Dead, they were, they're not really... How do I explain this? Many of the other legions were glorious, you know what I mean? And they were major fighting forces that get most of the credit for taking over planets, right? Because the Emperor would send them or even lead them into battle. And most of the legion would be used in said battle, right? But the Eaters of the Dead, or the Ninth Legion, were not the same. Due to their tendencies for, brutality and savagery, they weren't really, honorable warriors with, tactics or anything in mind. They were more like rabid dogs on a leash, that you would, release, and then they would just go attack anything you pointed them at. And they were so brutal and nasty, basically, and, disgusting, and their recruits were made from, the dregs of society, the worst of the worst criminals with no hope, or anything else to do. Yeah. And the Emperor just took them, shoved the Space Marine, surgeries into them and said, go kill that, because he knew what the Gene Seed was going to do to their mind, and the Gene Seed was, unstable and mutated, and it made whoever took it on much more savage and much more, bloodthirsty for battle, basically. And one reason why they would disgust the rest of their siblings, the other legions, and the other Space Marines, is because they earned the title Eaters of the Dead because they would be released as a shock troop, right? Essentially a really effective melee unit to cause an opening for the rest of the legions behind them, right? And then after the battle, they would eat the corpses of the enemies they killed. Yeah. They were on the very edge of just being animals, basically, which is all the other legions were you're effective, but you're gross. Stay away from me. Yeah. They were nasty. They were cannibalistic feral animals, with no sense of honor. They were, let's see here. Despite that, though, it is noted that they were weirdly handsome. When they mutated due to the Gene Seed's effects, they were, weirdly good-looking for a Space Marine. Most Space Marines are, kind of scary, Yeah. Because they're human, or they used to be human.
Stop.
Blue is, knocking the camera right now. He's, using the post to scratch himself.
He's using my leg as, to scratch his back. But his head is moving the thing. If
I could tilt the cameras down, I would to show Blue, but we can't right now. But... like I was saying, most Space Marines are kind of creepy looking, because, they're human, but then their, skeletal structure grows past what any normal human should be able to. Their muscles are different. It's have you ever heard of the Uncanny Valley effect? So the Uncanny Valley effect is, have you ever seen a movie that's animated, right? And they're animating humans, but the human just looks a little weird, so it, creeps you out, right? It's subtle. It's very subtle things, like the texture of their skin, or the separation of their eyes, or the placement of their lips. Any little thing can cue you into that they're not a real human, and that really freaks us out. We have an inbuilt neurological system to go, oh, that's gross. You know what I mean? Yeah. It's suggested that evolved to be able to identify sick people. You know what I mean? When they start having things go wrong with them, you can tell. It's not necessarily that they were inhuman thing. Well, there was a point in history where there was other species that looked like us, but we eventually killed and ate them, over the evolutionary.
Why is everything about eating?
Okay, look, we're a lot like blood angels, okay? But, I'm not going to go into a whole evolutionary spiel, okay? All I'm saying is that there's an uncanny valley effect so that you can identify things that look human but aren't human, basically. So or losing their humanity, in a sense, if they're going too sick, right, to be around you. So, most Space Marines trigger this effect. Can Blue stop moaning and groaning as he scratches all over the place, dude? Blue's going crazy
right now,
down
really
there.
just...
Yeah, no, I love that Blue chose right now during the podcast. I don't know if the mic is picking up any of this. I doubt it. He's under the table going, like just scratching his back right now.
I'm sorry, Blue.
Stop scratching his back. You're enabling him, honey. You're enabling him.
No, he wants more.
No, I'm gonna keep him right here.
Okay.
So, Space Marines trigger this effect. Okay. The Uncanny Valley. But the Eaters of the Dead, or Sanguinius' sons, are weirdly enough, handsome enough to, not really do that.
Wait, I want to see the faces. What's the faces?
Did
they ever show them?
Yeah, there's art of them, and I doubt that it would do a good job, because a lot of them are, fucked up after battle and everything. They're just handsome in terms of Space Marines, okay? Because most Space Marines are, again, fucked up experiments, you know what I mean? Only made for war. Are you gonna sneeze? No. You better not. People can see you on camera now. You're going.
I was trying to. And I feel like I sneezed inside. I'm crying over here.
You sneezed in your soul.
Yeah.
Okay. So, by the way, if you have any questions, you can interrupt me during this.
What kind of questions? I'm just trying to sneeze, and you keep interrupting.
How am I interrupting you? Just sneeze. While you're struggling with that, I'm gonna keep talking. Okay. Because of their known brutality, as their legends spread throughout the Imperium, all these other legions were earning, honorable monikers, and they were winning great battles, and great champions were arising amongst them who would later become leaders, you know what I mean? And lead their legion until the Primarch returned, kind of thing, right? The Eaters of the Dead weren't earning that at all. They were so different from the rest of the legions. They were so savage and so brutal in comparison to everyone else. Yeah. That they earned this unique mystique as bloodthirsty warriors, and eventually a cult arose around their myth of people who wanted to become recruits to the Eaters of the Dead and become one of the savage warriors,
No, I want to be different. I want to eat people.
Basically, you gotta imagine that you're kind of messed up in the head to be in this cult. Again, it's a cult, not a funny, after school meeting. No, these people are fucked up, and they think that their only trajectory forward in life is to be experimented on to become a Space Marine. You know what I mean?
Can you bring me the paper towel?
Yeah. And it was called the Cult of the Reborn. It was essentially a cult of people trying to lift themselves from abject, failure into becoming a Space Marine. This cult would be later destroyed because the Imperial Truth said no religion at all. Right. So the Emperor would have them destroyed. But despite just a fun fact. Yeah. They would be deployed to lethal backwater campaigns, basically planets that people didn't want to go to. The rest of the legions didn't necessarily they would be calculating on how to not lose as many men as possible, and then these guys would just be and then they would just let them loose on these planets. You know what I mean?
Release! Wait, have you seen that? Release me!
Yeah, the crews, release the baby, and then they just they just run on all fours. That's what they were like, for real. They didn't care about casualties. They didn't care about dying. They just wanted a snack, essentially. So you know what I mean?
Orcs?
Kind of,
or
but
the Tremors, the
Tyranids.
Tyranids.
In a way, they have some similarities, but they weren't a hive mind or anything. Mm-hmm. They're just savage people. You know what I mean? Okay. They would be called the Revenant Legion by Malcador, the Emperor's right-hand man, basically calling them ghosts, you know what I mean? Or walking corpses, because of how inhuman they were. They were just falling into their savagery, but they were useful, so they weren't destroyed. You know, they would their battle tactics and their battle doctrines would lead to really high casualty rates. But most of the time, like a lot of Space Marine legions, when they conquered a planet, they would abduct any people that were eligible for recruitment and replenish their numbers. Yeah. So any of the young boys on these planets that were conquered, if they were eligible to go into the surgery, they were just like grabbed and forced into becoming Space Marines.
Who knew their past?
Mm-hmm.
Oh wow.
And it doesn't matter because in becoming a Space Marine, there's a lot of psycho indoctrination. So basically brainwashing, you know? So as you're going through these things, all the surgeries, all the training, like you're getting like these things forced into your brain. So they're basically rewiring your entire personality and thoughts as a human being until the point where like a lot of them basically forget who they were before they were Space Marines because they get like some of their personality always stays, right? Because that's how personalities work, you know? They're not really fully controllable. But their thoughts, their beliefs, their faith in the Imperium, all that stuff, that's non-negotiable. You know, that is getting shoved into you at any cost, you know? But let's see here. They would be, as the war went on, and they fought alongside other legions that weren't necessarily glorious, there's a couple other people that were like them, like the Warhounds, which would later become the War Leaders, that were also pretty savage and brutal and looked down upon a little bit, but they weren't necessarily as like feral animals like these guys were. You know what I mean? And then like the Iron Warriors, who were just kind of like nose to the grindstone, doesn't matter what they get, we're just gonna do it in attrition warfare kind of means. They weren't glorious at all, very pragmatic and efficiency oriented, you know? So these legions weren't looked upon in the greatest light, and they would often be deployed together, you know what I mean? Because most of the other legions didn't really want to work with them because of the way that they fought and the way that they thought about war. And this would increasingly isolate the Ninth Legion away from the other legions, and they wouldn't have the same brotherhood or camaraderie with everyone else as the other legions were starting to develop brotherly bonds with each other and fellowship and everything. The Ninth Legion kept becoming more and more alone, and this began to develop like the symptoms of this began to develop in like blood cults where some of the members of the Ninth Legion began worshiping blood, you know, because like they had a hunger for it. They weren't just like eating bodies to eat bodies. There was something about their genetics that made them want to eat the bodies and consume the blood of their enemies. Yeah, literally. And they would begin to like worship brutality. So the more brutal you could be, the more like of a real Ninth Legionnaire you would become. And so this was spiraling very quickly into them becoming just savage animals that were most likely going to have to be put down. You know what I mean? And it was to the point to where like imperial authorities back on Earth were like, yeah, we're not gonna give these guys like good war gear or anything. They're gonna get like the cheapest of the cheap because they just don't care. You know what I mean? They don't use it efficiently. Just give them a knife and let them run into combat because they're not gonna. Like it wasn't that bad. Don't get me wrong. But as other legions got better guns and better armor and better weapons because they like took care of it and like actually cared, you know, and thought about things, the Ninth Legion were basically just getting the old shit. You know what I mean? Because they didn't care, you know, and they didn't care that they were only getting the old shit. They just kept running into combat almost like they wanted to die or eat. That was like the one or two options that they wanted for themselves. But this is where the story gets interesting. When we find Sanguinius. But before we get into the whole Sanguinius part, what do you think of them so far?
Savages.
Yeah.
Basically.
Yeah. Basically, at their core, they're savages.
Yeah.
And if you remember the animation, they're not savages at all.
No.
They were very well spoken, very well oriented. They spoke in like this very fancy language.
Yes,
you know what I mean?
I'm like waiting to get to that point.
Yeah, even in comparison to other Space Marines, you know what I mean? They're so courteous and they have etiquette, you know what I mean, and grace and everything.
Don't trouble yourself with that.
Yeah, no, exactly. So how do they go from absolute savages that the rest of the legions are kind of disgusted by to one of the most glorious and honored chapters in 40k?
So keep it going.
There's a big window of time here. So the Emperor would find Sanguinius on a planet named Baal. This planet is named Baal after like an ancient god like worshipped by a lot of like satanic cults and everything during biblical times. Like this is a real like actual mythological figure in human history. And so this planet would be named Ball by the original humans that settled it because it was so awful. Like, the planet was so terrible. It was hell made into a planet. Horrible monsters, barely livable conditions, but we tried to settle it anyway. But while we were settling it, it was going pretty successful in the whole humanity crumbling thing. Remember we talked about that previously? That happened, cut off all the planets, and then the ball basically went back to horrible status, and there's humans stranded there that have to figure out how to survive. Sanguinius lands on this planet. Okay? And it's funny, he's found by unmutated humans, basically just humans. And like I said, when he lands upon the planet, like, people knew because, like, there was some holy aura, you know what I mean? And, like, the clouds split. And baby Sanguinius, like, oh, as he came down from the sky, right? And they find him, and he's literally wrapped in, like, baby angel wings, like, white feathered wings, that had mutated when he was traveling, when he got, like, you know, chucked by his mom, Erda, into space. He went through the warp, right?
Mm-hmm.
They weren't just, like, launched into space, where, like, the Emperor was like, oh, what's that? They were actually, like, thrown into hell and, like, teleported around the galaxy. Yeah.
Poor babies.
I know, right? And during his time in the warp, he developed a mutation where he grew wings. He didn't originally have those wings.
What a nice mutation.
Right? Like, what a perfect... The rest of his brothers are all getting, like, horrible curses, you know what I mean? He's like, oh... His, like,
no,
wings.
he's special. He's special.
Exactly.
Something's wrong with him. He's...
When not to get too far into, like, the history of exactly how Sanguinius helped this planet, but Sanguinius grows... When Primarchs grow, like... When they're, like, 4 or 5, they're already, like, functioning like a full adult. You know what I mean? By the time they're, like, 10, they're, like, leaders of countries. Like, Primarchs are not normal at all. They're made to age up to their prime very, very quickly, you know? Basically stay there immortally. They don't really age the same way we do.
They grow, but they're really mature.
Right, and then when they hit that prime, they, like, stay there. You know what I mean?
Lucky bitches.
They're essentially immortal.
Mm-hmm.
And he would be gathered by the humans... And then all the human tribes, he would unite them, form...
The wings.
Yeah.
I just can't see it.
No, but that's how he was, like, literally. He would unite all the human tribes on Ball, make one, like, essentially, not, like, one nation. There wasn't a nation. They were all, like, separate, like, desperate groups, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So he would form one nation, and then he would lead a war against the mutated humans who they were at war with. And he would unite Ball... settle it and turn it into something actually, like, good. A lot of the Primarchs have this kind of story where they make their planet glorious, you know? And Sanguinius did this by uniting all the human beings on the planet. When the Emperor came to the planet and he saw Sanguinius, he's like, yep, that's my kid. Like, a lot, for some of the other Primarchs, like, the Emperor knew, right? But like, the Primarch, like, wouldn't really, like, know what's going on with the Emperor. The Emperor would kind of have to, like, trick them or, like, earn their trust sometimes, you know? There were times when the Emperor...
Comes back.
Yeah, no, literally, the Emperor would, like, he could change the way he looked. The Emperor, like, could change the way he looks for whoever... He would take on the best form to convince whoever he was with. You know what I mean? So we don't actually know what the Emperor really looks like, because he never looks the same, depending on who he's speaking to. Yeah.
Imagine he looks like a weird...
No, that's the thing, though. And for some of the other Primarchs, he would, like, turn into, like, an old man with, like, a hood, you know? And he'd be like, yeah, accept my riddles 3, you know, like, to get to know them, you know? And then, like, reveal himself, you know, like, later on.
Reminds me of the Beast and the Beauty and the Beast.
Yeah, kind of, in a weird way. I get what you're saying.
Yeah.
But with Sanguinius, Sanguinius and him looked at each other and like, yeah, I know you. Like, definitely, you're like Sanguinius. Like, you're definitely my dad.
He's like, you're definitely my kid.
Because there's just a vibe. You know what I mean? They looked at each other and they're like, yeah, like this is
like,
obvious.
These wings?
Yeah.
Only cook.
Sanguinius is like, obviously, this adoptive dad is not my actual dad. I'm like, you know, 10 feet taller than him, you know, and, like, radiate golden light all the fucking time. Like, and then the Emperor comes down with, like, golden armor and golden glowing eyes, you know, and he's like, yeah, that's the guy. So, for a lot of the other Primarchs, the Emperor had to, like, play some game or make some deal, you know, or if you do this, then I'll join your Imperium, you know, or if you beat me in this challenge, you know, then I'll join your Imperium, because you have to prove that you're stronger than me, because the Primarchs had never met anybody stronger than them, right? So when the Emperor, like, beats them handily and challenges, they're like, oh, this guy's, like, way stronger than I am. He has to be something legit, you know? Sanguinius, nah, He didn't like challenge him or anything. He's like, yeah, you're my dad. And they like bro handshake. Yeah.
He's special.
Yeah. So the Emperor, with his new golden angel child, takes him back to his legion and shows him his space marines. Essentially, he's reunited with the legion. Sanguinius would rename the ninth to the Blood Angels, because they didn't have any official name. By the way, the Eaters of the Dead or the Revenant Legion, this kind of thing, was like unofficial names for them, because they didn't accept names. They didn't name themselves or anything. They didn't care. But he would call them the Blood Angels. He had first met his legion at this planet named Tegar Pentaris. It doesn't really matter for our conversation. And he would, on the planet's surface, with the entire legion there, he would learn the name of every single one of them and swear an oath to them personally. So, like, you gotta imagine that for, like, the next couple days, he was like, hello, who are you? You know what I mean? Like, he would get, in a single legion, there could be thousands of Space Marines. So he took the time to, like, get to know all of them, learn their names, and make a promise to them that he was going to make it better. You know what I mean? He was going to fix what needed to be fixed. He would, for a while, to teach his sons what it's like to, let's see here. I'm sorry.
Sorry, not sorry.
I'm rereading my notes because I'm like, this happened? And it's like, oh yeah, this happened. You know what I mean? There's a lot going on in my head when I'm teaching you about all this stuff. You know what I mean? But yeah, okay. So for a while, he would order them to fight independently so that he could get to know how they fought and what the problems were. And after analyzing them, he would couple them with another legion called the Luna Wolves, right? Which were very honorable warriors with great tactical minds, you know? And a well-renowned and glorious legion for the Imperium, right? He would begin embedding Blood Angels with them so that they could learn what it's like to fight alongside people who aren't fucking bonkers, you know? And the Luna Wolves, like, knack for discipline and honor and civility would rub off on them. You know what I mean? Because he didn't just, like, shove his whole legion with the Luna Wolves. He was, like, tactically, since he got to know every single one of them, he would handpick his sons to go with certain groups that he knew could handle them. You know what I mean? And then after years and years and years of combat alongside the Luna Wolves, being led by the Sanguinius himself, they would begin to mold themselves into much more honorable, upstanding warriors. They would complete great campaigns alongside the Luna Wolves. They would experience immense victories, and they would learn restraint, nobility, and measured conquest. As in, they needed to conquer a planet, not destroy it and eat all its people. You know what I mean? Like, and then rob the rest of them. You know, it's like, oh wait, we can, like, rebuild a planet instead of just totally destroying it, right? And another thing that I want to add on to this that I didn't put in my notes fully is that Sanguinius would also be putting in lessons of, like, art and beauty and passion into this, right? He would begin teaching them to learn restraint and discipline by, like, hey, if you're going fucking insane, find peace through meditation with, like, painting or reading or writing poetry. You know what I mean? Like, he was, yeah, no, literally, he was teaching them the arts. You know what I mean? So Blood Angels weren't just, he didn't want Blood Angels to only be warriors. He wanted them to be poets, to be writers, to be painters, to be musicians. You know what I mean? He wanted them to be multifaceted people, not just a machine made for war, which a lot of the other legions weren't doing. Which is what separates that. You remember how I was saying, like, Blood Angels are so much fancier sometimes, or are so much more. I don't know the word I'm looking for, but, like, they have so much etiquette. You know, that's a part of the reason they're under Sanguinius's leadership. He didn't want them to only be warriors. He saw them as sons, not as machines for war. Which some of the other Primarchs did not agree with that with that philosophy. But that's what Sanguinius did, and it turned the most savage legion into the most honorable legion.
That's nice. That's nice.
Yeah. So during the era of the Great Crusade, which is the Emperor reclaiming all these planets, you know what I mean, to fold into the Imperium, and we would basically during this time period conquer most of the galaxy, and humans would become the dominant force again. The Blood Angels would become renowned shock assault specialists. they would develop a rivalry with the World Eaters. Remember the guys I was telling you about, the
Mhm.
Warhounds, my army. Since they were both like shock infantry, like melee
Yeah.
type legions, they had a pretty good sibling rivalry going on, where it's like who's the better guy, in like close quarters combat, right? Um, and they would become famous for wars of ultimatum. Worlds were offered compliance or faced a day of revelation. So what they mean by wars of ultimatum is that instead of just going on the full attack upon coming to a world, they would give them an option. You can
Mhm.
peacefully join us, or we will show you what will happen if you don't. Basically, um, and many worlds surrendered. I love that they specify this so much in the lore. I laughed when I was writing this. Many worlds surrendered, just not out of fear, but because upon seeing Sanguinius, they're like, "Oh!" like, like Sanguinius would like float down with his wings, and they're like, "Clearly, we have to join this guy." Like,
She's just a special kid.
those who didn't comply suffered horrible assaults. Like they would.
No, so it's like.
So the Blood Angels specialized in flying alongside their father with like jetpacks and everything, so they would get into combat really fast with their jetpacks. That's like their iconic unit, right? So imagine they're like, no, we won't be doing that, and you're like preparing for the assault, and then Blood Angels and Sanguinius are like flying at you at full speed.
Okay, you reject him.
Yeah, exactly. It's not a great time. But the Blood Angels become, again, they evolved from savages to icons of beauty, terror, and martial excellence. A part of the training to become great artists, Sanguinius also told them to master their weaponry and take good care of it, right? So instead of just like brutalizing anything with anything that they could hold, with the old shit gear that they would get, instead they need to earn a reputation to be able to get the nicer stuff, right? So like, hey, you have this sword, take care of it, sharpen it, clean it, like make it yours, name it, like learn it all the way and become the best swordsman you can be. So through this rigorous training and discipline, that's how they became so honorable. But a part of the reason why Sanguinius was so hard, like set on making them people, and making them have interests outside of combat, is because they have an innate savagery. They have a curse embedded into their genetic code. And the Legion's ancient bloodlust would never fully vanish. You know what I mean? The thing that made them so savage and everything, all of them would still have it, almost like an addiction. Underneath everything, it would still call to them at times, that need for blood. And Sanguinius would try and hide this from the Imperium. He didn't want them to know. He was ashamed of the curse that he had, then would give to his sons through his genetics. Because Sanguinius also had this curse. He had this like need for blood, this vampiric need to drink blood. And he would due to this shame and due to his love for his sons, he would be secretly trying to find a cure for this flaw throughout the entire time that he was alive.
He's dead?
Yeah. You see, you
literally just found.
Yeah, you just experienced a pain that all Warhammer fans go through every day that they wake up knowing Sanguinius is dead.
When you keep saying was, and I was like, and then I was like, what? He's dead?
Yeah.
What?
Look. He worked to find a cure because he knew that if they didn't cure this would lead to their downfall eventually. No matter what happened after thousands upon thousands upon thousands upon thousands of years, even if the Imperium won, having this group of hyper elite soldiers that all need blood like this desperately, like that's a problem, and he knew that was a problem, which is why he needed to try and find a cure. But all that aside, with a little bit of a time skip, Horus, Sanguinius' brothers, one of the Primarchs, would betray the Emperor. And it would split the Space Marines in half. Essentially, half of the legions would join Horus, and half of the legions would stay loyal to the Emperor. The entire Imperium was basically split in half in terms of loyalty. Half of all Guardsmen, half of the Adeptus Mechanicus, half of the Knights, half of the Titan. Like, literally almost perfectly down the middle. the one side of the Imperium was like, we're loyal to the Emperor and his vision, and one side of the Imperium is like, the Emperor is a false god, and we join Horus in overthrowing him. It's a whole thing. We're not going to get into all the depths of the Horus Heresy, okay?
Continue.
But the Blood Angels during the Horus Heresy, the Horus, before, like, there was a brief period where, like, everyone was like, something is wrong, but they didn't know who betrayed who. You know what I mean? There was a lot of confusion for a moment, where it's like, is Horus the good guy? Did the Emperor betray us? Is he the arch traitor? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And Horus was the leader of the entire crusade, by the way. He was the War Master. He was the Emperor's favorite son. It's a whole thing, right?
Yeah.
So Horus had the ability to command other legions and tell them what to do. In this brief period where people didn't know who was who and who betrayed who, right? Horus would send the Blood Angels to a portion of the galaxy called the Cygnus Cluster as a trap. The system would be overrun by demons, and yeah, led by a man named Kyrus the Perverse, and
perverse, like
yeah,
a pervert.
Yeah, like like a pervert. Yeah, like the perverse, but like corrupted, you know, satanic, evil.
Why can't
right?
they just be happy? Like, why can't they just like?
I know. Is Blue on the camera right now?
Is he?
No, I think his paw might be like.
Oh, because he was barking.
That's Blue. Blue, say hi to the camera.
Blah.
Is this like really up close angle of me, like comfortable for you guys? Like I'm like right here. Nice. But okay, anyway, like I was saying.
No, just stop it. I can't move on.
So chaos energies, as the portals are opening and demons are flooding in and everything, chaos energies would cripple the fleet, and a lot of the mortal crew members, so like all the humans on board, would begin going absolutely insane, because that's what happens when you're exposed to warp energy out of nowhere with like no preparation. And then I didn't tell you about this necessarily, but there's a beef that Sanguinius has with a specific demon, and like the Blood Angels, like they would encounter each other a lot throughout the history of the Blood Angels. And his name is Kumbunda. He's a bloodthirster of Khorne. Yeah, Kumbunda. Yeah, it's kind of a funny name, isn't it? But Kumbunda, a bloodthirster of Khorne, would confront Sanguinius. Kumbunda would tell Sanguinius of Horus's betrayal and try to convince Sanguinius to join their side, because Khorne wanted Sanguinius to be his champion instead of Angron. Khorne was actually originally looking for Sanguinius, because Sanguinius was kind of freaking awesome, dude. And
honestly,
he was pretty good at spilling blood and taking skulls. He was really, really good in one-on-one combat, or just combat in general. Sanguinius would reject the chaos temptations and fight Kumbunda while like all the crazy, you know, demon battles going on. The duel would end with Sanguinius being wounded and falling unconscious. And Kumbunda would, during this period where like Sanguinius was being protected and everything, so that he didn't die, Kumbunda would kill 500 Blood Angels, which is a ridiculous amount of Space Marines to die in a single battle. And this would scar the Legion, like really, really bad. They lost a lot of numbers, and a lot of Blood Angels were so horrified by what was happening. You know what I mean? Like their father has fallen in combat, and their brothers are dying, like left and right, in the hundreds upon hundreds, right? So they would go into a fury, basically. The curse, you know, the addiction, the thirst, the I think they actually call it the red thirst.
Yeah.
The red thirst would overtake them, and they would all go into like a wild berserk savage fury and kill everything on the planet. So yeah. And then after that, after they all began to regain
adrenaline, basically.
Yeah, it takes them over. You know, like they can't control themselves anymore. They just become complete savages when this curse takes over, which is why it's so dangerous and why Sanguinius wants to find a cure so bad. But after this battle, Sanguinius would swear vengeance on Kumbunda, and this beef would start right here, right now, after he killed 500 of his sons in a single battle. And, like, you gotta remember that Sanguinius doesn't just look at them as soldiers. Like, he knew all of their names.
They were his sons.
Yeah, like, they are his kids. Like, he knew all of them. He knew their personalities. He knew what they liked. You know what I mean? Like, they really, really, really mattered to him. And so, 500 in, like, a single battle. Gone. Yeah. Like, that. So, Sanguinius was outraged. He was heartbroken, and he would swear vengeance on Kumbunda. And this is where the beef between the Blood Angels and Kumbunda would begin. So, skipping forward a little bit, there's a lot of stuff that goes on with the Horus Heresy, but I don't want to get into it too much, you know?
Okay.
There was a brief period where the people thought that the Imperium had fallen. And Gilliman, the Lion, and Sanguinius had a protocol basically stored in reserve where it's like, if Terra falls, right, the main capital of our current Imperium, we're going to found a second emergency Imperium to try and reclaim it, basically, right?
Okay.
And it's called Imperium Secundus. And the Blood Angels would go join Gilliman and Ultramar. Sanguinius would be crowned Emperor of Imperium Secundus. Gilliman would elect him to become the Emperor because he's such a symbol of hope and glory, and all the people of the Imperium knew him. He's what they needed. They needed hope in this moment, right? And while he's being crowned, which, by the way, Sanguinius didn't want to be emperor. He didn't think that he was worthy of being emperor. He thought himself a failure, and he had a curse, and he had all these secrets, and he had so much shame due
500 crits, that's
yeah, and he was upset. The Horus Heresy was awful. He felt like he had some personal responsibility for for Horus falling. You know what I mean? Like, what if he had been a better brother, etc., etc. Right. So he has a bunch of things going on in his head, and he's like, I don't deserve to be emperor, right? And then during this, he receives a vision because a lot of the Primarchs, by the way, have like psychic powers, and one of the things Sanguinius can do is look into the future and see possible events. Because future isn't a fixed thing, you know what I mean? It's not.
Yeah, it can always change.
I look into the future and then this is gonna happen no matter what happens. No, he just sees one of endless possible futures. But one thing he sees in a vision is that the Emperor is still alive, and he's like, "Guys, stop everything! The Emperor is still alive. We have to go right now." Imperium Secundus is dissolved, and all of those fighters immediately go to go find the Emperor that they thought had died but was actually alive. Blood Angels would race for Terra, and the other legions, like the Ultramarines and like the Dark Angels, I believe, were there present, but I'm just going to say Ultramarines, they began to run distractions to give the Blood Angels time to get to Earth. Then we're coming to the big battle of the Horus Heresy. This decided everything. The forces of chaos and hell have managed to reach Earth. It is the final big siege. Everything depends on this battle. It's called the Siege of Terra. The Emperor is doing a bunch of shenanigans, and all the Loyalist Primarchs, well, not all of them, because some other Loyalist Primarchs are doing battles outside of Terra because they've either been held back by Horus because they knew they were too dangerous, you know, and stuff like that. Like, for instance, the Ultramarines were so far away, right? So far away, they were being slowed down. Horus had like a whole thing dedicated where like the Chaos Legions were just throwing themselves at the Ultramarines to stop them from getting to Earth.
Yeah.
Because if they got to Earth, then they would win. Because the Ultramarines just had so many numbers, and Gilliman was such a good like war expert. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Anyway, the Siege of Terra. The Blood Angels would fight alongside the Emperor, and Sanguinius would defend something called the Eternity Gate, which was essentially like the big gate before the palace, right? Like this is like this is the most important wall to hold, right? Another one of his brothers had designed the defenses for the entire palace, and Sanguinius was posted at the Eternity Gate. At the Eternity Gate for several days. I don't know what the exact amount of days is. I'm gonna look it up while we're talking. But how Sanguinius would be defending the Eternity Gate without rest for days upon days upon days upon days, fighting thousands upon thousands of demons, space marines, champions, including Kabunda and his traitor brother Angron, which were two of like the strongest Khornate demons. And you gotta, like, again, no rest, no sleep, no food, no water for days. Even a Primarch like this starts getting to you after a while. So an exhausted Sanguinius defeated Kabunda in one-on-one combat and banished him back to hell. Fought Angron and ripped the. Have I ever told you about Angron's nails? You know those weird tubes that come out of his head?
Yeah.
They basically, to keep it really simple, they made him really angry. Like really, really angry, and turned him into like an asshole, basically due to experimentation that happened to him when he was a baby. Yeah, it's a whole thing. We'll get to it when we get to it. Okay.
Yeah.
Sanguinius would grab these nails and rip them out of his skull, killing him and banishing him back to hell after having just 1v1 Kabunda, by the way, like one of Khorne's strongest demons. So he's going like back to back to back, like some of the strongest people in the setting, and Sanguinius is getting bodies and bodies. He's just destroying people. He's the GOAT. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But here's where it starts getting a little rough.
No, don't tell me. I'm not ready for this. I'm not ready. No!
He So there's another
Okay.
battle going on right now where the Emperor is trying to defeat Horus in one-on-one combat. And at this point, you gotta understand that Horus is basically no longer a Primarch. He's like a flesh puppet that all the other dark gods are inhabiting and possessing,
Oh.
which gives him immense power, by the way. Like, the dark gods give things power when they are conscious of it, right?
Mhm.
That's how they direct their energy. And to give you a good analogy, imagine that like a lot of the greatest demons, like champions of Khorne, right? Like Khorne gives them a little attention, right? Which is why it's making them so powerful, right? Horus had all four gods staring at him. You know what I mean? They're all looking intently like this, like he has to win. So
Yeah.
they're giving him everything they got. So Horus is an emperor level threat. And there's actually at certain points where it seems like he's more powerful than the emperor, which has never been seen before, right?
Mhm.
So him and the emperor are going crazy in this battle. The emperor is almost losing, and Sanguinius boards the Vengeful Spirit, Horus's flagship, where they're fighting right now to try and help his father in the battle. While his father is down, Sanguinius fights Horus on one-on-one combat, and for a moment, Horus regains consciousness. Right, the dark gods allow him to speak, basically, or it's like a version of Horus or something, right?
Mhm.
Because Horus is basically gone at this point. He's like dead, inside his own body. He's like hidden away. And the Dark Gods and Horus are trying to convince him to join their side, finally. You know what I mean? And Sanguinius refuses. He doesn't say anything. He doesn't have a glorious speech. They're just fighting. He's just trying to kill him. And when it's more just Horus, Sanguinius is winning the fight. They're having an intense duel, but Horus just can't keep up with Sanguinius' moves. And this is an exhausted Sanguinius after fighting for like weeks on end, basically, at this point. Um, how many days Sanguinius Eternity Gate? Actually, let me just get you the exact day, because like now I'm really curious. With sources, though his forces had endured. Nah, it's not. It wasn't just an afternoon. It was multiple days. I remember that specifically.
Okay.
It's the fucking Google overview that's like inaccurate like 90% of the time.
Yeah.
But anyway, days after days, an exhausted Sanguinius is beating the brakes off of Horus, right? Mm-hmm. And Horus is not a slouch. He's one of the best fighters out of the Primarchs, right? But after they realize that they can't turn Sanguinius, Horus and his Dark God powers activate again, and it's brutal. The way he kills Sanguinius is just awful. It's the most brutal death that a Primarch experienced, probably. Like, it's probably the worst Primarch death out of all of them. Broken arms, they snap his wings, they, like, beat his skull in. It's a whole thing. And so the most beautiful of the Primarchs is brutally killed. And then, like, demons, like, come out from, like, hell, basically, and, like, string up his body on the roof to, like, make fun of the Emperor, like, when he comes to, you know what I mean? To, like, basically take his best son and, like, show him his body, like, yeah, it's horrible. Like, it is horrible. It is the worst thing ever. It makes me so sad. It makes me so sad. But there's something important. We'll get back to the Emperor soon. But on the planet, when Sanguinius dies, all of his sons feel it, like, basically immediately. There's, like, a psychic shockwave that goes through all of their souls at once. And they all realize that their father just died. And this ignites a new curse inside of them. So it's no longer just the Red Thirst. Something called the Black Rage is basically, like, wounded into the soul of every Blood Angel permanently from now on. And what the Black Rage essentially is, now there's multiple ways to go about this, but I'll explain this in the simplest way. The Black Rage, when it appears in a Blood Angel, they go mad and experience the pain of losing Sanguinius, like, all over again. You know what I mean? And they can feel, like, Sanguinius's death, basically. Some of them even receive visions where they're like looking through Sanguinius's eyes as he dies. So they, like, and they begin confusing everything for Horus. So they begin feeling Sanguinius's rage towards Horus, towards everything. You know what I mean? So, like, if I was a Blood Angel experiencing the Black Rage right now, you would go from Leo to Horus. You know what I mean? And, like, Blue would become Horus. And that person would become Horus. Everyone's Horus. And I'm Sanguinius. in like the angriest, saddest point of his life ever, right? So they all go into a brutal rage, and all the Blood Angels on Earth began just fucking rampaging. And when they go like on a rampage, by the way, when the Black Rage overtakes them, they get way stronger, way faster, way more brutal. They become like super, super, super strong versions of Space Marines. But they can't think anymore. They're not thinking. They're just killing everything, including their own allies. Like, they'll kill each other because they, like, one of them is like, Horus! You know what I mean? And, like, a Blood Angel and a Blood Angel will look at each other and think that they're both Horus. You know what I mean? And that they're Sanguinius. And they'll kill each other. And after this happened, the Siege of Terra would be settled. The Emperor would be taken to the Golden Throne after defeating Horus but being brutally injured. The Primarchs would be horrified by what has happened. They would mourn the loss of Sanguinius. They would mourn the loss of the Emperor. Malcador, the Emperor's right-hand man, sacrificed himself so they could continue fighting. They lost a lot, you know. They won, but, like, did they? You know what I mean? Like, do we want to be alive at this point? You know what I mean? Like,
just kill me. Just
what's the point of victory if we're this wounded, basically? And after this, the Blood Angels would be horrified. They were so sad. They were sad with themselves. The Black Rage terrified them. You know what I mean? Like, this new curse that they had to deal with, and they no longer had their dad to help them with it. You know what I mean? It's grief and trauma, like, out the wazoo. And in their sadness, during their period of sadness, other Space Marine things would be happening, and they would eventually make up a rule. Guilliman, the Primarch of the Ultramarines, would make a rule where all Space Marines have to be split into chapters, so that not a single legion could ever have so much power again. Because the Horus and the other traitor legions, due to the fact that they had so many Space Marines under their control, all it took was one Primarch going rogue to cause a chain of events that was horrible. You know what I mean? For the Imperium. So he divided and decentralized the power, essentially, and spread out Space Marines into groups of 1,000. And those groups of 1,000 would have a single commander, right? And then they would report back to somebody else. So essentially, if one chapter goes rogue, it's only 1,000 Space Marines versus like 10,000 or 50,000 or 100,000 Space Marines all turning at the same time. You know what I'm saying? So a lot less dangerous, basically. The Blood Angels would be separated, and the second founding would begin. And this is where I believe the Flesh Terrors were founded, which were made up of like the most savage and extremist of the Blood Angels, and other Blood Angels they would all be separated into their own groups, and they would all be dealing with the grief of losing their father and like what they were supposed to be differently. You know, some kind of reverted back to their savage ways. Some of them still listen to the followings of Sanguinius, and believe. I think some of them even believe in his return, eventually. You know what I mean? But yeah, Sanguinius, dead as fuck. like dead.
No.
The only Primarch that's the thing about all Primarchs though, is that like their souls go back to the warp, right? Yeah. So in some way they could technically come back. You know what I mean? Like somehow. Horus, no. When the Emperor killed him, he didn't just kill him. He like, you remember Star Wars? Do you remember Death Star? The green laser, planets blow up. So imagine, like, he Death Star lasered Horus, and in doing so, like, destroyed his body and his soul. He, like, destroyed everything. The Emperor put all of his power into a single attack and actually, like, erased Horus from existence entirely.
Finally something good.
So there was, like, there's no shenanigans of Horus maybe come. He's like, no, you are dead and never, ever coming back. He is super, super, super dead. you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So all of this will affect how the Blood Angels act in 40k now, and how the different chapters handle the grief of losing their father, how they handle the Black Rage, how they handle the Red Thirst. All this is super important. But that's essentially the origin story of how we go from, 30k Blood Angels to 40k Blood Angels.
So they basically they had nothing, right? They were just out radish savages. Then they had their hope.
Their father gave them hope.
The father gave them hope, so they had something, and then they took it apart.
Yeah, and they were all permanently traumatized by it.
Yeah.
Like, so much so that, like, it's in their genetic code. Like, whenever someone becomes a Blood Angel, they get these curses, you know? And they have the ability to fall into the Black Rage and relive Sanguinius' death, basically.
Let these poor babies live.
I know.
Live.
I know.
But listen, do it. How do you say his name?
Sanguinius.
Sanguinius?
Sanguin?
Sanguine?
Yes.
Sanguine?
Sanguine.
Sanguine? Okay,
yes.
sanguine? Sanguine?
Say Sangi.
Say Sangi.
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 Just call him Sangi.
Okay, Sangi. No. I may just cry.
Yeah. Your face has been like out of frame the whole time.
You just dropped it on me.
Yeah.
No, he's dead.
Yep. This is something all, like, Warhammer fans have to go through.
And the fact that I realized that before you had mentioned the
yeah.
drop. That's good. You were just saying it so like, him
in future podcasts, if you're interested, or I can make this into videos, you know what I mean, and you can be there, you can watch it later, you know, or I can send you some good videos, you know. We could go into more detail of, like, specific events, like the duel, you know what I mean, and how it went between Sanguinius and Horus. I'm kind of doing, like, an overview where I'm covering a lot of Space Marine history, you know what I mean.
Oh, that was pretty good. I like it.
Did you like? So, what are your, like, favorite parts, or thoughts, or anything? Like, what do you think?
Everything. It was really entertaining.
Yeah.
All of it. They got me like on edge and went. Sorry.
I get it. It happens.
I just found out that he's dead.
Yeah.
He's actually alive right now, 40K?
No. There's no way. Well, I'm not going to say there's no way he's coming back, but he's one of the more dead Primarchs.
Not like Saint
Celestine, yeah. Because the thing is, there's a lot of Primarchs that are, like, missing. You know what I mean? Like, they don't have their bodies or anything, or they went into the warp, or they went to fight some battle in some distant... You know what I mean? So they're, like, missing. They're not dead. Sanguinius, like, yeah, we have his broken body. Like, he's dead. you know what I mean?
Did they bury him or anything?
Yeah, I believe he does have a tomb. Where? I think it's on Terra. But I'll look into that right now.
No. We just had to lose. Just let them live. Why can nobody just enjoy their lives?
He is on the homeworld, his homeworld ball, where he came from.
Yeah.
His body rests there in a golden sarcophagus, basically. And it's like one of the most holy things that you could possibly imagine to the Blood Angels, obviously. His physical form is in that sarcophagus, but his soul is believed to be fragmented across the warp, basically. So when he died, his death was, like, so traumatic and brutal with, like, psychic powers that his soul was essentially shattered into pieces across the warp. So he doesn't have, like, just one soul, right? Like, some of the Primarchs that are dead have, like, we don't have absolute guarantees, right? Yeah. These are theories. But basically they have, like, a soul somewhere in the warp, right? Sanguinius has pieces of himself scattered across the warp. And it is believed that there's this figure called the Sanguinor that's active in 40K, and it's basically kind of like a Saint Celestine, like, angel thing, you know, that comes when the Blood Angels need it most, and it kind of looks like Sanguinius, but it doesn't speak, and it's like a whole thing, you know what I mean? Yeah. It's believed that that's a part of Sanguinius that comes back to try and protect his sons, you know what I mean? But, like, it's called the Sanguinor instead. Yeah.
Just stop.
Yep.
Cut. I need a mourn. How do you say it?
Mourn Sanguinius.
Yeah.
Yeah, you just got to know the guy today.
Found out that he was so amazing. He loved his sons.
Yeah.
Was a great father. Tried to protect them. Tried to find a curse for them.
He's top. He's definitely, like, top 2 Space Marine dads. Like, 100%.
He was the best and such a beautiful soul. It turns out to be given the worst death ever.
Yeah.
Now the Redditors are like, how so?
How can we make this traumatizing for all future Warhammer fans?
They're like, no, he's amazing and everything. So we just should, like, kill him the most brutal way possible human existing. No, just...
Yeah, no, essentially. Well, closing thoughts, baby? You have anything else you want to say?
I'm gonna cry for him.
You're gonna cry
Today,
for him?
Yeah.
So at the beginning, you thought Blood Angels were just like basically red space marines that had something to do with blood.
Yeah.
At the end, what do you think of Blood Angels? Not specifically Sanguinius.
They tried.
Yeah.
They really did.
Yeah.
They finally found something, and then
it was taken away from them. Yeah. Do you think that like this isn't just a way for me to get more Warhammer models, by the way, but if you were to get into the Warhammer game, do you think like you'd be interested in a Blood Angel army?
Yeah.
Yeah. You think that'd be cool? Oh, you sad baby girl. Oh, my poor baby. Come here, baby.
It's a silly character, but it's like,
Yeah, come here.
never mind.
Come here. You want a hug? My poor baby. Yeah, it's sad. No, it is really sad. If I took the time to like really tell you Sanguinius' story so that you really got to know him, it would be a lot sadder. It's a sad story. It's a sad story.
Damn. I've been feeling like this the minute to me he was dead, I was like,
But that's the beauty of Warhammer. You know what I mean? There's amazing characters that you really care about. You know what I mean? You excited to learn more? Yeah? Get ready, because all these Primarch stories are pretty
no.
I don't know. I don't think you'll like any of them as much as Sanguinius, besides one guy who might be my favorite Primarch. But boy, oh boy, Sanguinius is a hard one. It is like the tragedy. You know what I mean?
And the fact that his soul is
like
lost.
Yeah, fragmented. You know, scattered around. Yeah. No, it's rough. It just gets worse and worse. Yeah.
Whoever wrote his character and like decided that death for him, watch out. Watch out. I'm coming for you.
Well, all right.
No, but who did it though? I just want to know.
I can't remember the name of the author. He's a really good author though. He makes really good modern stuff. But guys, thank you for joining us on this tear-filled adventure of learning the tragic story of the Blood Angels and how they get to their 40k counterparts. If you want to learn more about this chapter or any other Space Marine chapter, please do let us know below in the comments or the reviews, or I don't know if I have an email set up, but like, you know, all my socials. I
think you do for one of them.
I think I do, but like for them to find in like the podcast description, I don't think so. I don't. All my socials, you can find me at Shaker40k, except for on X, you can find me at T1Shaker. But yeah, you can send me DMs or comment on any of my posts anywhere, asking for more subjects like this. If you want to find more content, specifically on YouTube, that's where I put my videos and my shorts and everything that we make together on Warhammer stuff. And yeah, but you can find her here. She only exists within this camera right here. The second I turn off this camera, she's gonna disappear into the warp. Exactly. But yeah, all right. I think that's it, honey.
Yeah, I'm just gonna continue crying.
See you guys. We're gonna go cry about Sanguinius.
Bye-bye!